Our guest today is the Alderman of the 2nd Ward. He has served in the City Council for nearly 7 years. Our guest today earned his undergraduate degree in political science at the University of Illinois, where he also served as student body president. He earned his law degree from Northern Illinois University in 1978. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the City Club of Chicago, Alderman Bob Fioretti. Robert? All right, Bob, have fun up here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen and elected officials, members of the City Club of Chicago. It's always an honor to speak to the City Club. This is my 7th time to have the opportunity, and I am grateful. By now, most of you have heard my story. I am a proud product of the city of Chicago. That I am a child of an immigrant father, that I was educated on the south side at Mendel High School, had my first jobs as a teenager, delivering newspapers and bussing tables. That I grew up in Roseland when it was a diverse and thriving community. And more recently, I again have received a new lease on life from some of the world's greatest doctors at Rush and Northwestern. And I'm pleased to tell you that I have again received a clean bill of health, and I am 100% cancer-free. Thank you. Thank you. You know, Chicago has been extraordinarily good to me, and I've tried to return the favor through community service and leadership. I am now in my 7th year as an alderman, and in that time I've seen and learned so much. This year is the 100th anniversary of the poet Carl Sandburg's reference to Chicago as the city of big shoulders. Sandburg was later quoted as saying, "Here is the difference between Dante, Milton, and me. They wrote about hell and never saw the place. I wrote about Chicago and looking the town over for years and years. And after 7 years in the city council, I feel a little like Carl Sandburg. After 7 years of working on behalf of my constituents and the people of the city of Chicago and its residents, I see how things get done in the city hall, and I see the things that we are doing right and what we can do better. And that brings us to today. All of us are here today because of our concern and commitment to do something about the status of the city of Chicago. The past year, we've seen unprecedented difficulties, violence, high rates of unemployment and underemployment, the biggest public school closings in the nation, not to mention the polar vortex, which gave us an unusually rough winter and left us with everyone's favorite souvenir, the pothole. Today, the opportunities we once enjoyed are overshadowed by fear and pessimism. The young people see the city shuttering city schools and wondering, are they giving up on us? People can see that the elite few who make the major decisions about life in our city have shifted focus. Instead of expanding opportunities for the many, they are scooping up the windfall profits for the few at public expense. Instead of expanding public education, they are closing public schools, especially in black and brown neighborhoods. So we continue down this road of degrading our low-income neighborhoods, removing options for low-income families, sending a message of pessimism to the children of those neighborhoods. We have 47 school buildings standing empty across the south and west sides. CPS is supposedly groping for ideas of what to do with them. But some say there's been a backdoor deal all along, a plan to turn many of these empty buildings over to charter operators despite the CEO's promise not to do so. Are their suspicions right? Let's watch and see. The mayor's credibility is at stake here. Promises made are promises worth keeping. Yet decisions like these, which affect so many communities, are being made behind closed doors, despite the pledges of transparency and accountability. What happened to the hundreds of children from closed schools who never made it to the welcoming schools on the west and south sides? The administration made assurances that this gigantic transition would take place safely and with minimal negative impact. They were wrong. They ended up at overcrowding some schools and classrooms while emptying others. They created learning conditions for these kids that they would never tolerate for their own children. Not because they are malicious, but because of bad planning, lack of know-how, coupled with a lack of transparency. This is a dangerous combination. It makes you wonder, just who's calling the shots here? Who's making the decisions? Do they know anything about responsible stewardship of our tax dollars? Because if they do, it is far from obvious. As part of my colleagues in the Progressive Caucus, Governor Pat Quinn and the majority of citizens of the city of Chicago believe, according to the polls, we need an elected representative school board. We have issues that are difficult to solve: youth violence and joblessness. They require concentrated efforts. Then there are the kind of problems that are preventable, the kind that those in the manual administration either chose to create or stumbled into without thinking through the impacts. For the smartest guys in the room, they certainly have fumbled on a lot of ill-conceived projects on the public's dime. Deals are being cut at our expense. This is not responsible stewardship. We must put human need first. For example, Chicago has thousands of struggling individuals with mental illness. Many are poor. They don't have good health insurance. They rely on public clinics to survive. To close their mental health clinics where they see their psychologists and social workers, where they monitor their medication, was inexcusable. The decision to close half the mental health clinics has been a disaster for the patients and their families. Again, this was a choice, an ill-founded policy decision. The city claimed that by closing those clinics, they would save some $2 million annually. The city also claimed that it would save money in the long run, but that delusion was based upon superficial understanding of principles of public policy. This is a basic issue of competency here. A city executive has to be able to calculate human cost, which is multidimensional, not just a one-time deduction from the bottom line. It's hard to know the long-term costs of the closings because it is difficult to track people who become homeless, who wind up in jail while they're off their meds and off the grid. At this month's City Council meeting, my fellow Progressive Caucus members and I co-sponsored a resolution for calling for hearings on the closure of these clinics so that we can truly understand the impact in our communities. Sheriff Tom Dart has informed us he is running the nation's largest mental health hospital. Cook County Jail has over 10,000 inmates. Walk through the halls as I did with Sheriff Tom Dart and Reverend Jesse Jackson in January, and you will see the tremendous number of individuals who are there due to mental illness. Perhaps they can lead productive lives if they were in treatment, if they were being properly cared for. How do we begin to dig ourselves out of this? We need an integrated, interdisciplinary approach where law enforcement, the schools, the public health systems, the community-based organizations come together to develop programs that concern outreach, treatment, and safety. Instead, we closed half the mental health clinics. These decisions have consequences, both social and financial. Now, I'm not suggesting it is easy, but we must prioritize human need. When you're running a city, Your job is to find ways to solve budgetary problems without sacrificing human need. Amid the violent summer and autumn of 2013, we heard a lot of self-congratulations by the Emanuel administration as crime rates supposedly dropped. But a recent disturbing expose in Chicago Magazine showed statistics really don't tell the story. And certainly not if you're one of the children of Tyshawn Blanton, 31 years old, who was gunned down when he went out to buy milk and diapers. 31 years old. Even if the data is not being outrageously tampered with, as it appears to have been, a slight statistical drop in fatalities is hardly an occasion for celebration. Not when families are grieving and whole communities and neighborhoods and congregations are holding vigils and marches for the funerals of the young that die. When a South Shore resident tells reporters, we need to wear body armor just to take a walk, it makes you wonder. The campaign promise to hire 1,500 additional new police officers was ignored. That's why I voted no on the budget last year. It didn't make public safety a priority. The executive policy has been just to pay more and more in overtime, almost $100 million last year alone. My colleagues and I in the Progressive Caucus have been deeply troubled by this approach to safety and to fiscal management. That's why we did our homework and we found ways and money in the budget to fund 500 new officers this year. But our proposal was tabled with the promise that it would be resuscitated later, maybe at a more conveniently political time for the administration. Still, more police officers will not solve the challenges that we face. At its root, we are seeing the widening of Chicago into two cities. We need one Chicago, not two. One humanity, not two. Rising together, as New York's new mayor, Bill de Blasio, says, not from the top down, but from the middle out. There are a couple of big policy proposals I suggest as a bigger package to achieve that goal. First, without question, it is time to increase the minimum wage in our city. No one can survive in this city. No one can survive in this city on $8.25. We can inject millions of dollars into the economy by requiring businesses making more than $50 million a year to pay $15 an hour. The $15 an hour floor wage will empower workers with more purchasing power so they can put money back into their communities, boost their local economy, and create more good jobs. We need an economy in Chicago that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few. It's time we get creative about generating new revenue instead of just adding more and more regressive taxes on the backs of Chicago citizens. Every day, over 600,000 people wake up in the suburbs and travel to the city of Chicago to work. While here, they rely on our streets, our police, our fire department, and our first responders. Then they get back into their cars or onto the trains, and they go home and pay their taxes and spend their money in their own towns. Now, those 600,000 people generate a total of some $30 billion worth of income in the city of Chicago. If those people who live outside the city but work here paid as little as 1% in their taxes, we could generate more than $300 million annually. This could help stabilize our pension funds and reduce class size in CPS schools. This has been done in other cities. Given our fiscal state, this is certainly an option we should consider seriously. Above all, we need economic programs for the people in low-wage jobs, the part-time jobs, the jobs with no benefits, the seasonal jobs, the day laborer jobs. Among other measures, the Progressive Caucus and I have co-sponsored an ordinance that will ensure that Chicago workers, including low-wage workers in Chicago, such as those in restaurants, are guaranteed earned sick time. My friend, Alderman Tony Folks, tells of her experience while working at a local chain grocery store and coming down with chicken pox. With a high fever, she had to continue working, decorating birthday cakes for children, or lose her job. The city should be protecting workers and the public health from this kind of scenario. That's our responsibility as elected officials. Large-scale job creation is the key to solving the social problems generated by poverty. In the Second Ward, we are going to be celebrating the opening of the brand new Pete's, a full-scale supermarket at Madison and Western Avenues, a neighborhood where there has not been a supermarket since the old A&P on Western Avenue closed in 1968, leaving a genuine food desert for a half a century with no fresh produce or fresh meat. Pete's will create jobs and will hire from the surrounding community first. This is the kind of project that gives people hope that neighborhoods can rebound, that you can get what you want from your own community. This is something to be hopeful about. And I've been inspired by a new generation of progressive young leaders all across the city. I was proud to stand at the California Blue Line stop on Election Day a couple of weeks ago with Will Gazzardi, the 26-year-old organizer from Logan Square, reminding voters to head to the polls before going home. Will is now the Democratic nominee for the 39th District State Representative, unseating a powerful, well-connected, well-known incumbent. I hope this is the first of many passionate and competent new candidates who step up. New voices are vital as we build a more open, democratic political process where you can get elected even if you don't have a certain last name or tons of money, by organizing, by representing the needs and concerns of the people. We need those voices to address the needs of our city: economic development, reduction of violence, and public education. These are the areas that we must invest in as a city and as a democratic society. These are the glue that makes a city one. How many of you have been watching the CNN series Chicagoland? Okay, there's a few. You know, it doesn't paint a promising picture, though, of the city. It lays bare the brutal crime and the violence in our neighborhoods. But it shows heroic efforts on the part of individual educators like Liz Dozier, the inspiring principal from Fenger High School, and our police officers. However, Chicagoland does not show the efforts of the very wealthy to avoid paying their fair share. Nor does it show the disinvestment in our neighborhoods or the widening gap between the children in our neighborhood schools, what they receive, and what those in elite schools receive. We are at risk of becoming two cities. The poet, Kevin Caldwell, whom the Tribune recently called the voice of the new Chicago, put it well. And I'll close by sharing with you a taste of this picture that the poet paints of our city, but yet so many of our young people experience today. And he writes, Rahm Emanuel is building a second city. Two cities, really. One white, one black. One for the rich, one for the poor. One for private schools, one for closed schools. A new Chicago for the saved and the damned. Gold Coast heavens and low-end hells. As Chicago goes, so goes the country. And we are fighting for freedom for every person from every zip code. We are fighting for the soul of the city, the soul of the country, he writes. Now, I'm not a poet, but I would echo this sentiment. that we are at crossroads. We have a choice to make. What kind of city do we want it to be? 1 or 2? That is why we need to focus not on building luxury facilities on the public dime, but on rebuilding the city's infrastructure, refurbishing and strengthening our schools as the primary institutions of democracy, protecting the rights and promised benefits of our retirees and our children, delivering the health care that affects the quality of life of every person in the metropolitan area. If we make this our focus, we will create jobs. We will make safer streets, and we will preserve and improve this city, one city that we hold dear. Let's put our heads together, our shoulders to the wheel of justice, and believe in our hearts that what elevates the neediest among us will elevate our city as a whole. Thank you.
Standing ovation, Alderman. Anything else you want to say? Just threw that out for the hell of it.
Thank you,
If you
Paul.
have, I'm just trying to help. If you have a question, raise your hand. Give it to this young lady. Here we go. Professor Green has a few, but I'll save them. All right. Huh. 2 at one time. Well, let's start with Mark. I'll skip the first part. Modesty is my middle name. The pension solution is a math problem, not an essay. What is your pension solution, and will you... What is your pension solution? They want you to know if you run for mayor. I never heard it, even thought about that. But what is your solution? Let me read the whole damn thing. I'm screwing up. Sorry, Jackie, I'm trying to, I'm doing my best. A famous Chicago professor said today, the pension solution is a math problem, not an essay. What is your pension solution?
Well, I think there are several there, and it is an essay, not a simple soundbite. Over years, and I think in 2009, I was on the floor when I was voting on the pension, on the budget, and I said we have to do certain things at that time. And we have to look at alternatives. We have to look at making sure that we are making the funding that is necessary. One of the floor leaders got up in rebuttal and said, well, we were forced to take the pension holidays. Now, I know somebody must have been twisting their arms to force us to take the pension holidays. I think, first of all, again, we should be looking at, it's a revenue problem. We need to know what we need to do. We need to look at the state. We need a complete reform, if not an overhaul, of all of the TIF program, the commuter tax, as I've suggested. There are a series of other ways of broadening the sales tax revenue, maybe even lowering the sales tax itself, but increasing the base for the sales tax. Those are a few among many, but we don't need to be cutting retirees' benefits. Promises made should be promises kept.
We have boy, I'm really good at these Polish names, but this one really got me. Chester, where are you? Lakeview Council. How do you say your last name? That's right.
Yes, he is.
Many in our Lakeview community have lost confidence in the credibility of crime statistics for our community. Are our concerns, I can't read that word. Are you concerned about crime statistics that are being reported in our community? Chester, we got to talk about penmanship.
Thanks, Chester. First of all, I think the Chicago Magazine said it. Same day, the Inspector General came out with a report that said the error rate on reporting was about 24% on assault. But Chester, your community is much more different than a lot of the other ones since we are trying to create an entertainment district. But this weekend, I don't know how many times the police were on RAP, which is radio assignment pending, because there were so many calls in the 19th district. There are ways to deal with it. I did talk to the commander on, even though you're not in my district, I did talk to him on Saturday on some ideas on what can be done. But I think we need to take those bars under control. I'm concerned about the expansion on Wrigley Field with as we go through a lot more liquor sales up there and the problems that are attendant with it. And anybody that reads the blog in the morning about crime in Boys Town and Wrigleyville can understand what the problems are in the neighborhood.
Thank you. This is Edward Cooper. Cooper, how much of our problems do you think came from the state?
Oh, I'd like to blame everything on the state, but, you know, there's no use of blaming anybody. I mean, I'll tell you, though, 3 years the Emanuel administration has had to deal with the problems. He's yet to bring everybody to the table. The Progressive Caucus called for it about almost a year ago, bringing everybody to the table to discuss the problems, and we still have yet to see that. So whichever way we look at it, you know, and you can throw out a casino as some other revenue source too, and the numbers that would be generated by it. And in 2010, I think if everybody remembers when I was very healthy at the time, and I called for the casino, and of course everybody that was thinking about running for mayor then jumped on it at that time as a source of revenue. But let's not forget, all these revenue projections, whatever anybody says, maybe they get to that number, but if they don't, we've got to come up with collective solutions to deal with the problems.
Just another quick question. Ed Bach, how do you rate Police Chief McCarthy so far? Just read them.
Well, it depends on what you're rating. So, you know, CompStat's a number-driven resource. You know, I think we'd have to have a long understanding and a long talk about what happens in New York and happens in New Jersey doesn't happen here. I think come the time, you know, I'll give him a C right now, because no matter which way, whatever he understands, he does understand that we need more police officers. He may not tell you, because in the communities that have it. How do we know? Walk down Michigan Ave from Oak to the river any given day. And if you can't keep counting on all your hands and your toes how many police officers there are to give the appearance of safety, and yet we're stripping our neighborhoods, we're stripping the 19th district where, again, the radio assignment pending all weekend was just uncalled for. And this was the first of a warm series of weekends. Look at how many people were shot, how many people were killed, and you add up how to rate the superintendent of police.
Well, we have several other questions. Any more questions before I ask the last one? You know what's coming. A lot of these questions, Aldermen, have one thing in common. Are you, and when will you announce if you are running for mayor of Chicago? Hey,
what?
If I can't sandbag my alderman.
You know, first of all, since there's no press in here, and I know everybody can keep a secret, you know,
We'll make this a confessional. So.
You know, I'm honored and privileged, and I'm very honored to be a member of the Chicago City Council. I don't think my parents would have ever believed that somebody growing up in the South Side, we started off at public schools, I went to Catholic schools thereafter, would ever be in the City Council. And it's a great place, but we have to do it a lot better, our City Council. We have to be more effective, more efficient, and we have to be on time, we have to have quorums. But running for mayor is easy. It's governing this city that is difficult. If you turn your backs on communities, then you shouldn't be mayor. If you close schools in communities, when 20,000 people come out, you shouldn't be mayor. When all you're concerned about is raising the money to fend off anybody that's going to run against you, then you've got a problem as mayor. Now, whether I'm going to declare, I've been making certain decisions. I've been meeting people all across this city, in every ward. And I'm honored and I'm encouraged by the responses I hear. And I will make the announcement at the appropriate time, at the appropriate place, as to the future that I will have in my service to the people of this city who I really hold dear and I love each and every one of them. Thank you.
Well done.
Good.
By the way, for the record, when that time comes, we're available. Okay.